Hey guys, I'm David Black, and today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what it was like to lose my sister at 9 years old. First, I kind of need to start by telling you a little bit about who Jillian was and what our family was like before she passed away. My entire life, up until 9 years old, we were a super happy, picturesque kind of family. We took vacations every single year. Jillian did ballet. I was in hockey. Jillian was a Girl Guide. I was a Cub Scout. The only thing that was really different about our family was that Jillian had cystic fibrosis, and as a kid, all that meant to me was that occasionally she had to go into the hospital. There were other things too, like on the day-to-day that I knew were different. Like my sister got therapy every night from one of my parents. That would just be where they would kind of pat on her back like this until she coughed. But they'd do it for hours. She had to have that every night. And cystic fibrosis is actually a fatal disease. You have to be born with it. The only thing that's different about each person who has it is that some people live to be 12 years old and some people make it to 40 years old. It really just depends on the individual. So needless to say, at 9 years old, I did not know cystic fibrosis was a fatal disease. No one ever told me. Jillian, I think, knew, but never said anything. From my point of view, nothing was really different about my family. A lot of the happiest memories of my life are from that period of time. We would go down to Florida. Like both sets of grandparents and my parents and me and my sister would all be crammed into that little tiny condo, and just nothing but happiness. Like every morning we'd wake up and go shopping at the flea market. And I remember my parents got us these little yellow Walkmans. Walkmans, to those of you who don't know, were little cassette tape players. But that was like the height of technology for like 1989. And, you know, we'd go to the beach. We went to Disney World, and I remember that all so vividly. Sometimes I wonder if I would remember it as vividly if Jillian didn't die, because those are now attached to the memories of what life was like with Jillian when she was alive. Anyway, needless to say, I saw none of this coming. One day she got a little bit sicker than she had ever been before. Only this time something strange had happened. They sent her home from the hospital. That's a really bad sign, but 9-year-old me didn't know what that meant at all. And this is actually true. I snuck out of school on April 26th, which was the day she passed away, and came home from school. I swear to God, I didn't know she was gonna die, but it was almost like something made me do that. And I don't know what possessed me to do it. But I got home and I went, "Can I eat lunch at home?" And my mom went, "Go back to school. What are you doing here? Like, you're not allowed to sneak out of the school at lunchtime." Then when school was over, my mom's best friend's husband was blocking where I would exit to go home. And he was like, "Hey Dave, you're coming with me today, buddy." And I hung out with him for the day, and he took me to McDonald's, and I really had no idea what was happening. I do remember, though, that while I was eating McDonald's, he asked me some random questions that I thought were a bit weird when he said, like, "You get along well with your sister? You love your mom and dad?" And I remember thinking, like, why are you asking me this? At around 9 o'clock at night, he said, "All right, it's time to take you home." And as we approached my house, I noticed my street was just filled with cars. I got out of the car and began to walk in the house and realized that all of those cars were at my house. All of my mom's friends were there. And they were all crying. And like I knew something bad had happened. I walked into the house. In the Jewish religion, when somebody dies, all the mirrors are covered. And that was another thing I didn't know because I was 9. So I thought was like, why are all of the mirrors covered? What's happening? And I walked upstairs and we went into my sister's bedroom, and my parents were sitting on the bed with a rabbi crying. And I remember right away being taken aback because I had never seen my dad cry. My parents said, "Sit down, we have some very bad news to tell you." And I said, "Well, like, what happened? Did I get expelled?" I remember saying, like, am I in trouble? Like, what happened? They said, "No, we wish it was only that." And my heart sank into my chest to hear my mom say, "We wish it was only that you got expelled." She said, "Jillian passed away this afternoon." And my world came to an end. Like, it hit us like being hit by a car, but worse. To anyone out there who's ever lost an immediate family member, You know what I'm talking about. There's no words that describe what that feels like. If you haven't, I don't even want you to try to imagine what it's like. I'm happy for you that you don't know. I remember the Montreal Canadiens were in the playoffs, and like Jillian was at the hospital sick, and all I cared about was the Montreal Canadiens because I was 9. I didn't know. She died on April 26, 1993, and then they won the cup like a couple games later. And I remember I didn't wear my shirt to school the next day. Like, I remember thinking, like, who cares? After that, everything changed. Our lives went from literally happy all the time to literally sad all the time. At my sister's funeral, I don't remember any of the eulogy speeches. I was on another plane of existence in that moment. After the funeral, we went back home. Things were really weird for a little while. Her bedroom was still her bedroom for like a year. Her stuff was still all over the place, and it all became like holy immediately. And it just kind of stayed like that for a little while. And I remember I was in grade 3. I remember thinking, it's weird that my parents haven't forced me to go back to school yet. And my mom hadn't gone back to work, and neither had my dad. Like, they were over it. I looked at my mom one day after being at home for a long time, and I said to my mom, "Do I have to go to school today?" My mom rolled over and looked at me, and she was like, "You don't ever have to do anything you don't want to do again." I really felt like in that moment, my mom was telling me that it was okay to quit life at 9 years old. And I remember all by myself, I packed up my stuff and I told my parents I'm going back to school tomorrow. And I think that day or the next day, my dad went back to work, and my mom took the longest to recover. My mom was in a constant state of perpetual sadness for years. It's not something a mother can get over. We were never happy again. Like, I can't stress that enough. You know, maybe one day we'd laugh at a joke together as a family, or we'd go to Florida and spend 10 minutes enjoying ourselves at the pool, but that constant happiness became a constant sadness that had no reason to go away. I remember thinking that none of the other kids understand what this is like. We're the sad family, and we're like lepers now. Like, nobody wants to catch this. You have a good game? Who won? Yeah. I actually came here today because this was the park that we used to play at as little kids. We took our swimming lessons around the corner. I played soccer and football in that field right over there. That park on the other side was the park. I remember thinking, I don't want to now be the kid whose sister died. Even though I was. I didn't want that to become what I was known for, like this perpetual sadness that my parents were going through. Like, I remember thinking when I went back to school, like, this is it. This is life now. Whatever happens, happens. I had to become very strong and move on. And in that moment, something really weird happened where I became kind of insensitive for a few years because my heart just got so blocked up. One of the ways I tried to justify walking around constantly with these sad feelings was I would tell myself that really great people have also had adversity to overcome in their life, and you know, overcoming that adversity makes them stronger people. And eventually I just got used to the fact that, you know, life isn't fair. It probably took about till I was 24 years old, honestly, before the first time after I made that decision to go back to school, that it hit me one day. My life at this point, if Jillian had lived, would be 100% different. I would be a completely different human being now. And I decided to go to the cemetery where I hadn't been. And I went to the cemetery, and I just stood there like staring at the rock and the earth, because like, I thought to myself, like, she can't hear you. And then, I don't know, I started talking, and then I lied down on the ground next to her, and I put my headphones into the ground, and I said, this is my band, and this is the music that I make. And I told her a little bit about what was going on in my life, and the girl I was dating at the time. I genuinely felt better. Anyway, if anyone out there is dealing with losing an immediate family member, you know, I wanted you to know that I went through the same thing. And like, look, I'm still here. It never stops hurting, you know. No words make it better. This video doesn't make it better. But you're not alone. Peace.